Hey everybody, welcome to Challenge Accepted. I am Frank, and I'm joined by Thomas.
What's going on, everybody?
And we were talking about that latest episode of Loki, episode 5. What did you think of this episode?
Oh, man. This was the best episode yet. I feel like this was so damn good, right?
A lot happened. A lot happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it was meaty, for sure. When I saw that 15 minutes when I first hit play, I was like, oh, I was like, damn, they're packing a lot into this one. But I
I
get
always
it
check
now.
that time too. To me, it tells me, like, oh, this is going to be a good one. It's a big one. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it was
exactly.
52. I think we had one of the most important conversations Loki's had in a long time, possibly the most important conversation in the show on this one, and I can't wait to dive into that. Outside of that, we got to see Timely in action. We got to see Miss Minutes and what her extent is and what her plans are. I think it was really. I can't believe we're almost done with the show. We got two more after this,
I
but it was a
know.
really good episode.
Yeah, I just kept thinking all the people who got screeners, this is the episode they stopped at. So I thought,
Oh my god.
yeah, I'm like, damn, if this is the one you stop at, that would be brutal. I'm so happy we've kind of just been able to chew on it episode by episode
Hmm.
because this one left me just, oh man, on the biggest cliff. I was like Sylvester Stallone on that cliffhanger. It was
Yeah,
just too much, you know?
that's a good movie.
Yeah.
John Lithgow. Let's go ahead and do a quick rundown on this. You want to do the quick rundown on this, but you're going to do like a quick rundown on this, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'll need even 2 minutes for it. But yeah, please jump in and if I miss anything
Oh,
because,
okay.
yeah, we'll see how it
All
goes.
right.
All right, so we jump back in with Ravonna and Miss Minutes. They are at the Citadel at the end of time. We see Miss Minutes pulls up this whatever temp pad or device that shows her kind of the past at this moment with her
Hmm.
and Kang, or her and He Who Remains. Now, He Who Remains says after she leaves, basically she sees that she was his general. To operate Protocol 42, it gave me Order 66 vibes. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But then to go in and erase her and everyone else's mind. From there, we then find out she commanded his army and basically did all of his dirty work while he was just chilling.
It sounds like
We,
really built the TVA, really. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. At least I felt like for the foot soldiers that we see with like the black
Yeah.
armor and everything, like
Hmm.
Hunter B-15 and X5, like she created that force.
Yeah.
So we see Victor Timely. He ends up at the TVA.
Hmm.
From there, he gets brought in from Loki and Mobius. He gets to then meet Obi. Obi says the
I
thing.
love it.
Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
great. It was pretty amazing. Again, we're saying all this before we know anything about what's going on with Jonathan Majors, but him as Victor Timely in
Great.
this moment with Kei Kwan's Obi was just such a cool connection and
Yeah.
just I don't know, this it worked.
It's the
I just
most
loved it.
time travel couple sentences ever, too, and I loved it. But yeah,
Yeah,
we'll,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
venture back to it. But go ahead. Go ahead with the rest of the story. But yeah, we have to definitely talk about that.
Definitely. Then Obi and Timely decide to work on the device to fix the loom together.
Yeah.
From there, Sylvie calls out Mobius when he says, "Let's go get pie." This obviously disturbs her a lot because she
Of
knows when these
course.
branches get pruned, it means all of these lives. One was hers, basically. From there, we see Brad and Docs are in the holding room and they have an interesting conversation where we got to see that box that closed in and basically like
Oh,
squishes
God.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the grates in the ground. Brutal.
Hmm.
We then get the Loki and Sylvie conversation where the "we are gods" part, oh, gave me
That was
chills.
good, too.
Is that the
Yep.
conversation you were talking about at
Yes,
the
it
beginning?
is. Yes, it is.
Nice. I love that conversation.
Yeah.
All right. And then Ravona and Miss Minutes also jump back into the TVA. They then hold everybody kind of hostage. They only end up getting X5 to go along with them. From there, who's BB? I put BB. I don't know who that is.
Probably B15.
Maybe B-15. Oh, no, no. Obi. Obi reboots the whole system, short circuits Miss Minutes, Sylvie,
Magic
and
Unleashed. That's a very big part of that. Yeah.
yeah, exact. Then Sylvia Chance, X5. He then prunes Ravona. The group then scans Timely. I thought that was an interesting contraption. And
Hmm.
Loki's about to go outside to the loom to use the contraption, whatever it was that Obi and Victor created. But instead, Victor decides to go in the suit. He goes outside and instantly gets spaghettified. The group is dumbfounded and shocked. They don't know what to do. Then the time radiation blasts at them. We get to see the light in Loki's eyes, blacks out, episode over.
Yeah. TVA
Yes.
assumably destroyed. Yeah.
Right? Is that okay? Yeah,
That's
I
the
don't know if I
assumption, I
want to say
think,
that.
that they're supposed to be given because they opened the blast doors. It's the whole point of Victor Timely was to open the blast doors, which now is no longer protecting them. So, yeah, that's gonna get them right in the face.
Yeah, man, that is crazy. So where do you want to start with all of this craziness? Because, like I said, a dense episode that jumped around a lot, but it explored a lot of these crazy, unique
Yeah.
relationships. And it was interesting that we got in episode 4. I thought, wow, this is really insightful and I'm happy to get it here. But I also thought for people who maybe weren't hooked in the beginning, it might have been better in the beginning. What was your take on that?
But I will say that I think this was needed because we had to kind of reestablish these characters and show the version that we're dealing with now. So I think this is good timing for all that. And honestly, the reception on this show has been overwhelmingly positive, except for one person I know. And so everybody seems to be really on board with this. I think it was really good. My only downside to this episode was the fact that the big secret that Renslayer had to learn was one that, as an audience member, we already knew. I like if
Right.
Renslayer is going to learn a new secret, we should too. But no, it's not one that we. I mean, like we already know that they wiped Mobius's mind. They wiped everybody's mind, so I didn't think that was
Yeah,
a big deal.
that's true. I think we know. I think people who know and listen to this type of podcast or you listen to
Fair.
Marvel podcasts, you know. But like for my wife or people who don't really watch it, that's probably going to be a really big surprise
Yeah.
because we know as comic fans that Ravonna and Kang have this on and off again relationship or always
Right.
near miss relationship through the comics. And like we knew it was coming, but I like that we get the playback from the clip that Loki heard in the earlier episodes. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2, but
Mhm.
her discovering that not only did she know him in the past, but also was kind of his right hand person for a while
They
that kind
even
of was just getting
said,
used.
yeah, that he even said, you and me will rule together. It was a partnership that he had pitched to her. We
Right. But
know
Kang don't do
when,
partners.
no, and even Timely ditched her based off Miss Minutes saying she wanted to partner up. So that's
Hmm.
clearly a big focus, which I absolutely love that about King because the other thing you know about King is that there's a shit ton of them. So it's like
Right, right.
doesn't partner up, has a bunch of partners. It's so great.
Right, right. Well, yeah, that's so true.
It's so King. I love it.
Would I trust variants of myself? I
Oh
don't know.
no, I mean like if you're King, especially no, right?
Right, yeah. I don't even know if I'd trust variants of myself, and I feel like I'm a pretty trustworthy person, but I already
Yeah.
feel like my variants would screw me over.
Well, that's I love that, but that's the thing with King, right? It's because he doesn't take any partners. The fact that he has all the partners means it's a constant Sith situation where the apprentice is taking out the master the whole time. That's
Right.
what that Kang's greatest weakness is the fact that there's other Kangs to come and get you. I love that about him. He's such a good character, and I hope MCU knows that and uses it well.
Yes.
Um, with the conversation between Renslayer and Miss Minutes as it developed, it seemed almost like Miss Minutes was pitching this idea of like, why don't you and I take over and wipe out all the Kangs, which I kind of led to thinking that idea that I pitched last week was like that's possible that maybe that we'll see Renslayer become the new top dog for the MCU.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. In this episode, I was thinking that, but she got pruned back to back episodes. So I'm like,
Yeah.
is she like a Loki where she's always a loser? And I thought, is that Kang's destiny too? And then I thought on top of that, if Kang's always destined to lose, how can he ever be that big of a villain where we're afraid of him? You know, like Thanos wins in Infinity War. Like, is this if they say that the blast door is being opened and it wipes out the TVA and that's part of He Who Remains' ultimate plan, then I guess. But at the same time, like I don't know if I like the idea of Ravonna either being a Kang variant anymore if she's always losing. Like it
I don't think
doesn't
she's a
make me
variant
afraid.
now. I think the fact that they show that they have some sort of a love, it feels like a little bit of a love relationship. I
Right.
think means it's Renslayer from back, like the real comic book one. I have a feeling. and we might
Right.
get
Like,
that
yeah, more
revelation
comic
soon.
basis than them trying to
Yeah,
do something unique with Jonathan Majors or whatever. But
right, right, right.
yeah, at this point, I'm like, you know what, just recast if that's the way it has to go for whatever
Hmm.
reason. But yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting choice, because we start with her and then she gets beat by X5, like, an enchanted X5.
Let's clarify. Yeah, which means it's actually Sylvie, by the way.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
because even like the way she comes in, she's like, "Oh, I didn't think I'd see you again so soon."
Hello.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when she says, I was like, "Oh yeah," because she just kicked her through a door, so she thought she was in the future. Um, so by the way, let's clarify what happens to you when you're pruned. I think that's really important. I had assumed it was because you were then erased from the timeline, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Because like we're seeing Loki get pruned, we're seeing what does that mean then?
I think pruning does. I mean, it is what we saw in season one. They go to whatever that world is where all prune things goes, where Eliath is, and I guess they subsequently get eaten by Eliath unless they can dodge it forever. And
Okay,
yeah, so I guess she's now in that place. Maybe a little bit poetic in a sense that she kicked Loki there and Sylvie there and Mobius and now she's there. But
okay,
I don't know. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't mean you die. You're just in this
right.
new place that's at the edge of time, but that's also not
Which
the
is
Citadel.
so. Then last week when Sylvie kicked her through the portal, could she not have just pruned her? Because she had the pruning thing in her hand too, right?
That's so true, right? Yeah, why didn't she just prune her then? She could have.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just kind of confused because we saw Loki get pruned by Lava by Loki later on. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
but then I remember like, okay, that's something that they were doing in the beginning of the episode. Multiple things. I kind of wish that had more impact too. By the way, the fact that it was just Obi on the phone was like, it's not the greatest. But it
Right.
was neat to see it tie back. It was just I was kind of hoping it would be impactful. It wasn't that.
Yeah, it still hit me pretty good because I like
Yeah.
when something is established in, a first episode
Right,
or a
right, right,
beginning
right.
of a movie, and then it comes back to play and it's a bigger deal at the end. The rumors, if you, again, listen to any podcast or listen to any
Of
big
course.
YouTuber, they had all said it's probably Loki who pruned Loki, and we're going to get that at the end of the season. We got it here at episode 4, which was still great. I thought that was awesome. And then as soon as Sylvie got in the elevator and it wasn't working, I knew
Yeah.
exactly what that moment was going to be,
Right.
right? You're like, oh, she's like, I'm pretty good at technology, which I was like, why? But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I guess Loki's smart, so, and thus Sylvie's smart, so I guess you could do it. But I liked how it all tied together. I agree with you, though. I just wish it was somebody more impactful on the phone. Like, I wish it was a
Yeah,
bigger
that
deal.
that
You're
was
like,
kind of like almost a fake out. I think that was what they're playing it as, almost as comedy. It's like, oh yeah, the whole time it was just Ob, and yeah.
yeah. It didn't make me
Uh,
laugh, though. Made me mad.
Speaking of Obi, him and Timely talking was some good fun. Both
That
trading
was.
signatures.
Mm-hmm.
It confirms the fact that Timely is the actual Kang or the He Who Remains that put together the TVA. Because I know there were other people, including myself a little bit, were hoping like, oh, maybe this is a different situation. No, Obi says like I learned it from an 18th century inventor,
Mm-hmm.
so
Well,
or 19th
okay,
century.
so that's what's so interesting to me. Like, I feel like he taught him some things. Like I feel like he maybe put a kernel of information in maybe Obi's brain, and thus Obi put a kernel in his brain by the book. But I don't still think that he's the one that set up the TVA. I still think because we saw Timely get wiped out in this. I truly think there's a different Kang who's in charge here that was using this version of himself that he planted in the past to grow up to then create the time chair that he would then use, but also sacrifice him so that he who remains would not have to sacrifice himself.
So what I took from it was so because remember we're off on a branch as soon as we saw that in the last episode. As soon as she dropped that book off, it was a branch.
Right.
So in the main timeline, eventually, where I think Timely ends up basically making the TVA, brings in Obi, and teaches Obi everything, and then so he to jumpstart his future. I think he's like,
Mhm.
well, let me just take Obi's information because I think Obi learned everything from King. Well, he kind of said that already.
Yeah, but I was so on that part. I'm also thinking this Kang is so smart and so advanced. Maybe he took a variant of himself, dropped him in 1868 or whatever, knowing he's gonna be as smart as me. He's a candle maker. A book drops in, figures out the timely or becomes Victor Timely, and then creates this thing and again gets himself sacrificed. Meanwhile, he's in the corner just tapping his fingers, plotting, like, look at this variant of myself who I knew would do this, and yet I don't have to sacrifice myself.
My only problem with that is
Yeah.
he sacrificed in the TVA, so he wouldn't be plotting anywhere in the TVA.
No, exactly. And that's the thing. I don't think he needs to. I think there's so many. We've already seen one pocket dimension where time kind of doesn't really matter.
Right.
Not even in Loki. We saw it in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania.
Yeah.
So even in that, which is basically Chronopolis, like there's other places that exist outside of time. We have the TVA, we have the Citadel at the end of time, we have the place that everybody goes when alive, and we have Chronopolis, aka Quantumania world. So there's other places where he doesn't have to be in order to still like screw up what's going on at the TVA.
Yeah. I just personally like the idea that we had a real gumshoe, or not gumshoe, real smart, timely, who
Yeah.
then basically teaches Obi everything, and then in the future, he who remains is like, I taught my apprentice everything. I'm going to use my apprentice to jumpstart my own future better, and so that then there's a circle, but it's all because he who remains was like, the guy I basically duplicated myself from in a way to run TVA so that I can work on this project. I'm going to have him basically through this book. Because remember how Time was like, oh, it's like I have a conversation with the writer of this book. I just really loved that conversation. And it was almost like he who remained basically set up best friends. And
Yeah,
just
yeah.
was really kind of a cute conversation between the two of them just geeking
Oh, it
out
was
together.
great. Yeah, and
Yeah.
didn't you like I did the thing, the whole I know we've referenced it so many times, but the Leonardo DiCaprio point at the TV thing where
Yeah.
OB says it's like a snake biting its own tail. It was like that's so good. I
Literally
love that they
paused
just
it,
yeah.
made a post for challenge accepted.
That's
It's
amazing.
on
That's
CNN right now.
that's commitment
Yeah.
right there. But I mean, I think again, I still like the idea if there is this supreme king out there, what's more sinister than somebody who would sacrifice them, a version of themselves, for the
Yeah.
master plan? Like, there's some part of me that just loves that concept where it's like, how evil can you get? Like, killing people you don't know or you're never going to see is like one thing, but also like sacrificing a version of yourself who what they probably felt or thought or whatever
Mhm.
feels so much more sinister in some ways to me. I don't know. I just kind of like that.
Especially when you mirror it, because I think there's so much mirroring going on in the show. Especially when you mirror it to Loki and Sylvie, who are constantly working together, and
Yeah.
you would never see one of those two prune the other one or remove the other one.
Yeah, yeah, not anymore. Now that they've gotten past it all and
Yeah,
there's love there and there's appreciation and it's like you had your own life and I had my own life and now we're together and all these things. But yeah, we're never going to see that. Well, it's weird because we saw Council of Kangs, but then again, they're probably all trying to backstab each other. So there must be a king out there who's like, you know what? I'm going to be the only one. I don't mind if I'm already like it's already happened. I don't even know why I'm having to explain this. Like that was the whole point of the last episode of season 1. So there you go.
right. Yeah, and trying to find who the next guy who will rule them all. I mean, he who remains was it, and he was somewhat peaceful. And then trying to find the Kang the Conqueror. That's who we're looking for, right? And so Yumi are sitting here talking about this because we're trying to figure out who's that going to be, because it has to be worthy of the Avengers twice almost. And it's tough because, man, Timely doesn't feel like it's it. Timely just got spaghettified. And I hope Marvel sticks this landing because they have to show us somebody who's bigger and better than anything we've seen so far. And we've seen some pretty badass stuff. It's just interesting to
Mhm.
see. I wonder if they're going to show this guy who's been the masterminding Timely and stuff like that. I hope so. I hope it works
Yeah.
out well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and knowing that there's an infinite multiverse, like I figured they would also show us a Kang who's a good one. And maybe this version just
Iron
really
Lad.
wanted. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh man, I really do hope they do Iron Lad. That'd be so sick. But maybe he was just an inventor, this one we got. I don't know, there
Yeah.
was just something about him. Like, he had certain characteristics that were Kang like from what we understand of the character in the comics. But at the same time, I don't know. I just never got that he was the ultimate big bad or would evolve into this ultimate big bad.
Right.
I think you need to believe it. Like the guy we got in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, even though he lost by ants, which I still think by the ant family, I still think that was a big mistake. But
Of
he
course. Yeah.
he was scary.
He
He
was.
wiped
He
out
was a threat.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked powerful. He was just completely demolishing people out of existence, and he had fear, and he was strong. Like I need a king like that to be afraid of.
I was really hoping when he stuck his head in there to do the reading that it would have given him the neural patterns from He Who Remains. So he would go in like, oh, Willikers, timely, and then come out
Yeah.
would be talking like He Who Remains, and we would see the shift and be like, oh shit, we just unlocked Kang. Like I was really hoping that would happen, but no, they went 1,000% the other direction and just killed him
Yeah.
off. 2 seconds later, it's like, God damn
Yeah.
it.
That would
But
have been sick
I'm
though.
ready to be excited about Kang. And I can think that's what it boils down to. Is I'm ready to be excited about the one that we know is gonna fight them all. Like I'm so ready for that, man.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. And I think that's what's so confusing. It seemed like in the comics, there was one king, but just at different points. So he was going back in time to
Yeah.
see, a younger version of himself, or to see a version of himself that went back to the ancient Egyptians. But it's like we're getting different kings because of different timelines, and
It's
it's
weird, yeah.
it is
Which is not
confusing. It's weird.
necessarily multiverse, but it is kind of multiverse.
Well, then, like, yeah, and it's also kind of flipping the whole idea on its head. They're saying that there's no closed loop theory, but then in this season, we're getting a closed loop theory. And so if
Yeah.
Timely's training Obi and Obi's training Timely, like chicken or the egg, but they said in Endgame that doesn't work, they really gotta help us understand how
It
time
kind
is
of
going to work moving forward in
yeah.
the 616.
Looking at the Hulk and the Hulk explanation, right? Because it's a different branch, doesn't it still work? Because right now it's hard because they're in the TVA, but let's assume they're not in the TVA just for the sake of my mind not blowing up. But let's say like this Timely is from a branch. He's not from the Sacred Timeline. So the Hulk explanation still stands because it's now over here, not down here.
That is true. Does the branch work for the TVA though? Because we're getting a branched Victor Timely, we're getting a
Well, the TVA is
branched.
all variants, so they don't have the branches don't matter. They're looking at the branches actually out the window.
Yeah, the only reason why I'm asking is because we've been following this Loki, like this specific Loki,
Right.
except for the one that got pruned, but then he's destined to go through the same thing all over again. So I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to understand for Loki, our main character, what does this mean for him if he gets wiped out? Is there another version of Loki that we haven't seen yet who was on the main timeline that we get to
Yeah.
continue on with?
The Loki that's on the Sacred Timeline died to Thanos.
Right. But now we've been following this branch Loki, and if he's gone, and we know Infinity War Loki's gone, who do we follow for the last two
Sylvie.
episodes?
Like well, okay, on that, as a Star Trek fan who does a lot of time travel, I guarantee you there's a reset. I guarantee you, boom, explosion happens, and then all of a sudden, everybody's looking around like, oh, this is, I don't know, they'll jump back to a certain moment. Like, that explosion reset time, I can almost guarantee you that. And we're gonna
Huh.
like get to the moment where all of a sudden we see Loki like stretching out again, and then he's like, "Wait a minute, I remember this," and he's trying to convince everybody real fast, and then all of a sudden, like we're gonna jump back. So that's why in this episode when they're pruning Renslayer and like all these people are coming back next episode. There's no doubt. None of these guys are staying pruned. All the people
Yeah.
that get smashed in a box, they're all back. Like
Wow.
that's
Good.
Star Trekky, and I can
Mhm.
guarantee you that's what they're gonna do next episode too, or something along that lines.
Yeah, what was it? The Year
Year of
War
Hell,
or whatever?
Voyager does it.
Year of
Yeah,
Hell, there it is.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that'd be crazy. I the only reason why I don't want them to do it is because we're getting into this thing of death doesn't matter anymore. Like
That's
there's
the
no.
Loki problem from day one.
Yeah, I know. It felt. I don't know. I don't know where it's going. It's weird. I'm
Right.
confused. I don't know how I feel about it, but I know that when I was watching this episode and right when I finished it, I loved it. I thought this was
Same.
amazing. I was like, God, they gave us such amazing
It might be
character
the strongest
moments in
one.
it. I
Yeah.
think so, for sure. Well, other than, I know a lot of people didn't like the first one, but I liked it because I find it so interesting making it feel like there is a ticking clock on a place that doesn't have time.
Oh,
So in
well put.
episode one, it felt like, right, they had to beat the clock. Oh shit, he's
Right.
time slipping. Oh, the temper loom's gonna blow up. And in this one, it also felt like there was a ticking clock in a place again that doesn't have time. So I think that's so
Mhm.
interesting and intriguing to me. And we get these amazing character moments. Even Sylvie calling out Mobius, like, "You want to go get a pie?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's just go get a pie, everybody. Yeah, wow." And then she's all pissed off, but it's yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the Sylvia doll? Because I think she was a great addition. Although I still don't
Oh
understand
yeah,
how she can just come and go from the TVA, but whatever.
yeah. Uh, I think yeah, I think it's because the TVA is looking at the branches. So I literally think like we saw that happen in episode 1 of this season. You literally pull like when somebody's leaving the TVA, literally being pulled from one of those branches that we see. And I think that's why.
Yeah,
So she's like literally going out to a branch, coming back to it when she goes, back to McDonald's. Um, I want to
my
go
mind's
ahead.
broken. No, no, my mind's just kind of like trying to process that. Can you explain it a little bit
Okay,
further?
so when they open one of the doors and they walk
Hmm.
through it, they're literally going to that thing that they see out there, the thing that's the loom. They're
Right,
literally going out to that branch. So like in the first episode when they had to pull Loki from it, it's like they had to do it manually because the portals weren't going to work basically because
right.
he's in too many places. So they had to go out there like, no, grab you, prune you from everywhere else, grab you here, you're good. Because he was in two different. He was splitting himself again. Like it was basically a variant creating variants, and
Yeah, okay,
so
I got it. He was
they
now in
had to like
all the
clean it
different
all up.
branches at one time.
Right. So they had to like grab him out of it because it was messing up and it was like a variant becoming too many variants. And
Ah,
so
gotcha.
literally that's what I'm saying about all the other stuff too is like when you're into the TVA, you're looking at the branches happening. So when they go to the branches, when she bounces out, she's literally portaling out to the thing that they're looking at in it. And when they prune it, they are cutting those things off, but they're literally right there in front of them.
Yeah. Man, yeah, that's crazy. It's
Um,
a mind trip.
That's why I'm saying like when that thing explodes, it's literally like times hitting them. So like it could push them back, it could push them forward, it could change. Like they could go and all of a sudden all the carpets blew all of a sudden. Like what the fuck? Because they're in a different branch. They could kind of be taken into a branch because a branch
Oh,
just hit them.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it's the actual branches that are hitting them right now. So that's why I'm saying it's a reset. We're getting time just hit the TVA, which that right there is a sentence that doesn't work. So what's the effect of that going to be?
You're right. And that provides a world of possibilities. It's
Right.
so true. I speaking about a world and possibilities and ruling, there is a conversation between Loki and
Yeah.
Sylvie in the pie room. I loved that conversation because it's kind of the whole idea of what the show's been about, I think, from the beginning for me, which is free will versus determinism. Like, are you always bound to go on this path and always do what were meant to do? And you think you're having free will, but we're always destined to be on this path? Or is there really true free will? And I love that they're kind of going back and forth, and Sylvie's like, we got to let all these things happen, and Loki's like, no, we need to we need to stay positive. In a weird way, he was the positive one, and we need
Hmm.
to let them all not have a choice, because I'm getting myself all tossed and turned right now,
No,
but
let them have a
yeah,
choice, but make sure that their choices are protected.
are protected. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. She's like, "Oh, aren't we playing God?" And he's like, "We are gods." And
Our
I'm just like,
gods.
"Yes, they're bringing it back to this again is Loki. This is Thor's brother. This was Odin's adopted son."
Yeah.
So, it's about time we've gotten that idea of like, I am a god, you nitwits. Like, bow to my feet, in a
Yeah.
way. But yet he's doing it from, you know, uh, what is it? Malignant? I don't know what's the word I'm trying to say. It's too late now. But basically, he's trying to do it to make everybody's lives better, not selfishly, like what he was doing in the
Yeah.
original Avengers.
So this, I can't agree with you more. This is the most important conversation had in the show so far, and not only for the purpose of the show, which, like you're saying, is free will or determination, but also for Loki himself. There's so many people who watch Loki, and we've had these conversations in the past, recently, and we'll probably again. The fact that this isn't Loki anymore, right? But this is the conversation that sets everything straight. He starts off by saying Sylvie is the stand-in for him, his old self, as always has been in the show, and he's explaining that like my brother would go to Earth and he came back changed, and I thought he was weak, and him saying that, mirroring that back to himself, he's saying, I now know it was strength. And so, like, when he's saying that, he's not saying the second half, but that's what it is. He now knows it's strength. And so then he's also using, by invoking Thor's name, it's telling the audience members, you've accepted this development, this evolution from one character. Here it is in the next character. It's happening to Loki now. You've been waiting for it to happen, and it's happening now.
Yeah.
And then he talks about how the future is going to be changing, and he's setting up the future of the TVA. The fact that we have to protect people's choices, and because before we saw the idea of the TVA was to keep this one straight line, and it's like, no, the TVA still has to exist because otherwise you do get Kangs or you do get evil Reed Richards or anybody else really. So
Right.
the
Maybe even,
the
yeah,
TVA
maybe
has a
evil
purpose.
Captain Rogers or evil Tony Starks or yeah, but at the same time, allowing people to make their choices at the same time,
Yeah,
and but not in a way that would just destroy the whole universe.
which is exactly acting like a god, acting like God. She says you're playing God, and then he says we are gods. Which, by the way, like you're saying, that like that line, you were waiting for it to just drop because it was so boom ready to drop.
Yeah, that
And
like
when he
was like a
says
gut
that,
punch right there. You're like, "Oh, that was good."
he says it, and he doesn't even wait for her response. He walks out of the room because that is Loki. And what I love is you go back to the beginning of the conversation. That is like Thor. It's look, I'm still showing my proof. I'm still godly, but I'm using it in a way that actually is impactful. Which before he was squandering it, just like Thor was
Right.
drinking beer all the time, and Loki was constantly the god of mischief. And he's no, he's still a god, but he's actually doing his duty more so than any other gods have in the past. Like even Odin hasn't saved as many people as Loki has in the TVA.
That's so true.
So
Remember there was a
cool.
line from, I think it was the original Avengers, where he's like, the biggest lie is, people thinking that they have free will and blah blah blah. I,
Yeah,
I
and he
think it
makes
was
them
when he
kneel.
was making, what was it?
He makes them all kneel at that in
And it
that
makes him
scene.
kneel.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's that same conversation, but just from a different point of view. It's
yeah.
it's act- it's
It's him
exactly
changing his
coming.
mind. Yeah, through
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, it's still his opinion, but now just changing his mind from the other direction, where
Yeah,
I don't have to push everybody down underneath my thumb. Now I let everybody have it, but I need to protect that, and that is godly. It's
yeah.
not forcing people to bend to my will that's godly. It's
What's
allowing them
so
to do what they want to.
sorry? This is such an exciting conversation. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm hyped with you.
Yeah, yeah, no worries,
In
man.
that exact conversation, what happens next? Not the Quinjet, but the Avengers come in and knocks him on his ass. Right? They fight him right away, right there. And
Yeah.
now, if you were to take this Loki and you put him back over there, he would not be making people kneel. He would be an Avenger because he would see somebody
Wow.
shutting down people's free will. This is an
Yeah.
Avenger worthy Loki. There is a what if that is what if Loki was worthy, which I haven't read yet, but the covers, choice. I need to read that for
Yeah.
sure.
I know I haven't read that one either, but yeah, I've heard of it. Man, it's so true. God, this is a Loki worthy of being an Avenger, and that's
Yeah,
amazing because what does what does the Avengers have if they don't have Thor anymore? What if Chris
right.
Hemsworth doesn't do it? Does Tom Hiddleston want to now come back after this 10-year loop that he's been on? Now
Hmm.
does he get to come back and be the hero? I mean, God, and he's earned. It's not one of
Yeah,
those BS things where we're now just getting an anti-hero for anti-hero's sake. It's just like,
yeah.
dude, it's so earned. Oh
Well,
my God,
what's
that
so
made me
cool
so
about that dude
excited.
is the Prime Loki, the one that we had that died to Thanos, was an anti-hero the whole time. This one's not
Right.
an anti-hero. This one's a hero.
He's a
And
hero. Yep.
what's funny is that one actually still stayed true, but he kept his trickster ways, and he ended up, hiding as his dad, blah 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 blah. While this one literally became a variant because of his attack on New York and taking the Tesseract out of an opportunity that the Avengers created because of the Infinity War. And so it's like he was doing his crazy Loki stuff, but now he's oh god damn it. I really hope I know he will be a hero in Secret Wars, and it's gonna be interesting to see him and Thor standing side by side.
God, well, do you think, again, I have no idea where they go after this episode. I think you're right
Well,
now,
true.
though,
I
that it
think it's
does
reset, but
reset, yeah,
it
everything
could be
for them. And
anything.
who knows how it flips around the TVA and whatnot. But do you think in this show, by episode 6, do we get Thor? Because the director, producer, somebody has said the
Yeah.
goal is to get this Loki back to his brother. Now, do you think we get this in episode 6? Is it too soon? How? Why? I don't know. or do you think that's
Yeah.
a future thing?
It's a future thing, I think, but because I think the next step is Deadpool, production wise. Um, but it would be nice to have a moment with Thor because we've been teasing that quite a bit through rumors and stuff. Maybe like we see him kind of like desperate, and then he talks to Thor somehow. I don't know. There's got to be a way to talk to Thor and really kind of nail this down.
Sure. I mean, I think you could go to a branch timeline or go back to the past. I mean,
Yeah,
if the TVA gets reset and they jump into whatever the timeline is, maybe they see King Thor, a
yeah,
super old Thor that's like,
yeah,
I knew you could do it. I knew you'd change. And that sets, he's like, now you need to go back and rule this thing because you are always meant to be there. Always knew you could be this person. Oh my
yeah,
God. That conversation with like old Thor
yeah.
to Loki and
Absolutely, dude.
him saying, you are worthy now to rule is
You
just
remind
like,
us. You remind me of our mom. Like that. I just want that one freaking line. Like
yeah.
that would mean more to Loki than being able to pick up the hammer. Is
Yeah.
saying that
I
you
think
remind me of our mom.
I think I would like that. I think that would hit me harder, but I think most fans would want to hear like, you remind me of dad, which,
But that's what Thor. Yeah, you're right. You're
yeah,
right
you
because
know
the
what I mean?
mainstream. But the
Yeah.
dad is so Thor. But the
This
mom is the whole
is so
thing. The entire
Loki.
time is so Loki.
100%. And we
Go
know
watch Thor 2, by the way, guys. I know you guys all hate Thor 2, but man, it does a lot of good work for Loki.
it does. It's not the best movie, but the character building and everything and what Loki gets to do in it is awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just a lot of like really good interesting moments in there that I think really do pass on to what I just thought was Thor, but you see it in Loki especially now when you were right. We got to see him still be mischievous and everything. Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, I'll take either one. That would make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
Because the Thor that we got in Thor: Love and Thunder doesn't really make sense jumping into this property right now.
No. There is a God. I don't know what it was from. Might have been just an animation. Oh, it's one of. This is off topic, by the way, but I just have to mention it because it's so cool. I saw the clip for it. Where Avengers are fighting Thanos, and Thanos is using the time gem to age everybody a lot. Have you seen that? That is an animation that they did.
Yeah, it was from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, right?
It must have been from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which, by the
Yeah, I think so.
way, they ended up rebooting that to make it more MCU accurate. That was a bad idea because,
Hmm.
man, that original one was so incredible. But what I love is he's like aging everybody and they're getting older. Hulk is like sitting there becoming old man Hulk, which we know is a dangerous guy. But, anyways, becoming old man Hulk, and he's like, oh, he might be able to do it. Nope, Hulk dies. But then finally, here comes Thor, and he's aging Thor. And Thor just keeps coming stronger and stronger. And he's like, why are you not aging and dying? He's like, I'm a god. We just get better with age. And he just
Yeah.
beats the shit out of Thanos. Oh, it's such a good moment. I'll have to post it somewhere.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
these
Find
two
that one. That's
together is
just
gonna be
sick.
good, man. And we have to remember that Loki is in the same boat to where maybe we could see that at some point when Loki jumps in the future. Like he's even better now, something like that. He's even stronger. It'd be a cool
Yeah,
tool.
absolutely. Do you think we get to see an origin for OB in this or for
Yes,
Mobius this season?
I think Mobius because we know there's the. I don't think we've seen it yet, but we know. Shit, that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. We know that we see a clip where Loki surprisingly shows up on a Sea-Doo parking lot dealership thing.
Right, with the crazy inflatable flailing arm man thing. Say, I
Yeah,
always
and
want to
that
say it
has
that way
not
because of
been.
Family Guy.
Me too. I know exactly. Yeah, for sure. But that has not been seen yet in this season, right?
No, no, and he's time slipping. So maybe it resets. He's time slipping again because time is
Yeah.
now shot through him. Maybe all of them start time slipping and they have to figure out how to get back to the TVA together.
What if all the
But we haven't
variants
seen it
go
yet.
back to their original branches, and so then he just shows up and he's time slipping, but then he sees Mobius working at the Sea-Doo dealership and is like, "Hey, you're actually a secret agent of this, adjustment bureau," and like
Right. It's
that would
like
be really
Men
cool.
in
Then he has to go
Black.
see. Yeah, he goes and sees Renslayer, who like I don't know works at the cotton candy shop or whatever. Like,
Yeah, teacher. We
yeah,
saw
teacher.
that
There we
in
go.
season one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be so cool if like yeah he has to like undo or like he goes to all the original places, you know.
Oh man, that's so right. That's so cool. I loved it because you saw it in his face, especially, bringing up the pie conversation again.
Yeah.
When Sylvie says that to him, the way they zoom in on Owen Wilson's face and how he like is so downtrodden, he's like, damn it, she's kind of right. And also, I am afraid to see who I was. I love that concept, where you used to think he just like really believes in the TVA's mission, but now it's starting to seem like he's just afraid of confronting who he was. He's like, I don't want to know because what if we've seen that conversation happen throughout this show already? The
Yeah,
part where they're eating key lime pie, Mobius and Loki, is that conversation right there. He's like, I can handle if it's bad. What if it's good?
right.
What if I can't handle if it's good? And I live here now and this is my life. And, I realize I had a better life out there. Like,
Right.
I just
That's
feel like
exactly
it's
what happened to
coming.
X5. He found out he was an actor, and now it consumes him.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like once they've seen the Matrix, they can't go back,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I could
yeah,
go
I
back.
love it.
Whenever I watch Matrix, I'm always like, give me that other pill, man.
Yeah,
I'll back in no
exactly.
time.
Who was the, yeah, Mouse or whatever? I don't know if it was Mouse.
Fully agree with them.
Cyrus.
He is the smartest person in all of the movie because he's like, just make me a celebrity, make me rich, give me a hot wife. I'll go
Yeah.
back in.
Nothing too important.
Yeah.
Celebrity. Give me a nice
Meanwhile,
piece
in
of steak.
Zion, they're screwing in the dirt. Yeah, no way are they winning out on this.
Screwing in the dirt, sweating on each other, just
Yeah,
like,
that
yeah.
nasty ass dance scene. We got to do
Yeah.
Matrix at some point.
It was
Now that
like
I'm thinking about it.
sweaty rainwater dripping back down
Yeah,
on him.
the grossest scene. You can almost smell it when you're watching it in theaters. It was
Yeah.
terrible. Anyway, so
Yeah,
back to Loki.
exactly.
Yeah,
But
we talked about this in the past recently. I love how this show more than I think any Disney Plus show, even all the Star Wars ones, sparks the most conversation. Like it makes you really think about things, and I freaking love that about the show. And I think it's why it'll last longer than most.
yeah, agreed. Agreed. And also, yeah, it feels like each episode starts and ends in a way that's appealing to the next. Not,
Yes.
I've said this multiple times. Like, if you chop up a movie 6 parts, sometimes where you end it doesn't make sense where you start
Yeah.
it for the next episode. Like, it just wouldn't make sense.
There's a reason that
So,
a lot of times you'll see like Disney release the first 3 episodes because like you kind of got to watch the other two because
yeah,
it's not
yeah. Or
designed well
like,
for it. Yeah.
yeah, Amazon Prime does that. I love that
Yep.
Amazon Prime does it, and it like hooks me because then you're already engaged, you're deeply invested, blah blah blah. But they also don't do 6 episodes, which is just dumb. So, the,
Yeah.
I yeah, I like how this show is dicing it up. It still feels like we're getting so much content, and we're getting so much intrigue, and it's building so much just interest for the future of the MCU. Again,
Mhm.
which king are we getting? What's going to happen next episode? Does Loki and Sylvie work out? Does Mobius ever figure out where he's from and how does he handle that? Do we
Mhm.
find the origin of OB? Like there's so many parts here that are really interesting on their own and they're jam-packed in this one episode. I mean, there was a part in this where Brad and General Dox are talking to each other and
Yeah.
she's like, Don't you think, don't you think you're on the wrong side knowing that we'll die to defend what we have here and you're just going to go off with her?" And then they get gruesomely squished in the box, and
Oof.
then just, which was a horrific scene. It
Yeah.
was actually
And they
pretty
didn't even show
scary.
it, but I was like, "This is Disney Plus." Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was scary. Like I appreciated that, like that even that conversation. When you're blindly devoting yourself to a side or to a job or a position, it's one thing I'm like the most worried about. Like,
Yeah.
maybe this is too personal, but it's like it's why when I look at politics, like I'm always careful to like not just watch something I support. I always want to try to balance it out
Of course.
with something else because I don't want to like tell myself this is the way it's supposed to be. I don't want to feed into my own confirmation bias. Like,
Right. That's
I
responsible
want.
consuming right there, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's not a thing that a lot of people like to do. So I know it's there are
Right.
people like you're crazy, bro. But I mean that's kind of my way of doing it, and that whole conversation summed that up. And exploring that theme in a show like Loki is like, whoa, what are we doing here? This
Yeah.
is heavy, But
Yeah.
I appreciated it. I liked it.
Um, I'm going through my notes right now. The only other thing I really want to make sure we mention is that they changed the music for the final credits to this eerie, like piano ding 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 kind of sound.
Yeah.
Um,
It wasn't a ding ding. Yeah, that was a
yeah,
terrible Loki. I don't even know what I was doing there.
that's staying in too. That ain't getting rid of that.
That's fine.
Um,
You guys know the
on a
theme song.
side note, the theme intro from the last one was that little like Westworld version of the piano. For
Yeah.
the Marvel, please let me have that as a ringtone. You guys got to sell that as a ringtone because that would be the
Yeah.
incredible one.
I wonder if they have
Um,
that on Spotify.
but I
Go
bet
check
they,
that out.
if not yet, they will soon because that was beautiful, really. And
Yeah,
now I'm
it's
like,
cool.
kind of make some more of them. Let's hear the Iron Man theme. Um,
AI could do it. Sorry.
I
Sorry,
can't think of
everybody,
anything
writers
else.
and
My
artists.
notes are pretty tightened up. I think that's pretty much it for me then.
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
And I guess the one thing I had from last episode was, I was just confused if Timely was actually just a con man or if he was actually smart. Like, no, we find out he's actually smart. So I did appreciate that, where he had to use cons because his ideas were so into the future that he couldn't have them be made. He had to just con to get by. So I liked that was answered, and everything is pointing back and starting to connect more with other properties. Again, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania feels more relevant today than it did even when it came out.
Well, I mean, that's a given because there's no relevance when it came out.
Yeah, you're like, what was that? What the hell is that?
Oh
Yeah,
man.
I didn't hate it even, but it just didn't make sense to me. So this
No,
is
go listen to our review on that one, guys. It was we were swallowing a pill on that day. Yeah, but
yeah.
worth checking out. It would be interesting to revisit Ant Man after we watch this. I think I'll rewatch Quantumanium and see like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about this, and I still think that's his damn time chair. That device he was plugging into that, the way that
Yeah.
unfolds, I'm convinced that that's still his time chair in some way. So I know that there
Yeah.
was a piece that he was missing from it in Quantumania that he needed for it to all work. I have a feeling it's all wrapped together.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, do people think it's not his time chair?
Oh yeah.
Really?
People keep thinking it's some random device that he made, and
Oh.
yeah, some real big people. And then I'm actually commenting like I'm pretty sure that's a replica of his time chair because the way it opens up on top.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm getting no feedback on that, man. I'm telling you, I think it is
Really?
definitely leading to it.
I
And
thought that was like a well-known fact already at this point. Oh, that's weird. Okay.
oh
Well, you
yeah,
heard it here
absolutely.
you heard it here first, folks. Like
Yeah,
you heard it from us.
I'm
Yeah.
convinced. And then knowing Kang from the comic books, like it seems like everybody's so worried about like, oh, his end time thing is really a big deal. No, Chronopolis is a big deal for him. That time chair is in a suit. Actually, his suit, yeah, is like Kang. So like, really, everything needs to come back to that chair. And it's like, man, people keep forgetting about that. Like, that's really one of his big powers is that chair.
Totally. Yeah. In fact, before I really knew Kang, like I'd seen him in some stuff. I had maybe read some comics with him, but I never felt like he
Yeah,
was like a big, big bad. But when
yeah.
I started to do like my deep dives before Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, everything and King Dynasty was announced, all of that stuff,
Hmm.
the chair was the first thing that popped up.
Yeah,
Jared was like, he goes around to every timeline. He becomes every version of himself because he can use this device. Like that goes around with him
it's the
everywhere.
time traveling that he has. That's how he time travels. It's not a magic ability. It's the chair.
Yeah, exactly. And then the suit was secondary to all of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I that has to be it. I mean, it's like Thor's Mjolnir. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. I'm just kind of surprised that that's not being discussed a lot in other geekdoms. Is like he's got to be going towards that chair at some point. Otherwise, who the hell is he? It's like so important that about the King variants and not so much about the King chair. I'm like, yeah, but King the villain has
mhm.
the chair, has that suit that's super dope. As much as I don't like how he died. Quantumanium King is definitely the most King of them all so far.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the one I associate as King for sure.
Yeah.
And like I was reading Young was it Young Avengers?
Hmm.
And yeah, he was the most like that, like Jonathan Majors from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Young Avengers does that have Iron? That has Iron Lad in it, right?
Yeah, that has like yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
dope.
oh, man, that series is so dope
Yeah.
because it really I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but even what happens with Iron Lad and all that is this is surprising at that time. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, I did not expect that." Although I don't know if I catch on to things that well. I find myself surprised pretty easly these days. But yeah, which is a sign of good writing, I guess, or I'm
Yeah,
just
that is.
dumb. So either way, it's a
No, it's
win
good writing.
for writers
Marvel's
out
does a
there.
good job.
Yeah,
I get Young Justice mixed up a lot of times with them. Like
yeah.
I'm
I
like,
almost said that. Exactly.
yeah,
Thank
I
you.
was like, oh wait, is that the one that's actually betraying them? Has been with? Oh no, wait, that's Young Justice.
Yeah,
That's
or the Runaways. The Runaways has that too, which is
yeah,
another
yeah,
Marvel property.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. That was on top of Brain because it was in the MCU book, where that was
yeah,
originally supposed to be a movie, then turned into a show. So
yeah.
yeah, man, this Marvel. I'm just happy. I am very happy with the way things are going. I
Me
don't
too.
think
The
that
future's
the
bright.
Marvels is going to be a big movie. I'm curious to see how it ties into the future of the multiverse saga that we're currently in. But at the same time, I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be a terrible movie. I can see it being as good as Blue Beetle, if not better. And I really liked Blue Beetle. I didn't think it was the most amazing movie of all time, but I
Yeah.
really, really liked it. And I think the Marvels is on track for that too. So we're in a really, really good time.
I I have a strong feeling Marvels is going to be a surprise hit. I think not financially. I think people are going to sleep on
Yeah,
this one, and
definitely
it's
not
going to be
financially.
super good because
Yeah,
those three are hella good act. I mean, well, Brie Larson's questionable sometimes, but they're really good in their roles, and yeah, I
yeah,
think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be
it is definitely.
good. Let's see. Is there anything else before we go forward? I think that's pretty much it. I think we wrapped up Loki like really well today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
I think we covered it. It just was
Okay.
such a interesting episode again, every beat.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you're not watching it, like you should be. I don't know why you're listening to this if you're not watching. You probably
Yeah,
are
yeah, for
definitely
sure.
watching it, but it's yeah. God, I just these next two episodes, I just don't know what we're in store for.
So our next episode coming out is going to be out on Halloween Day, guys, and it's going to be the Midsummer episode. When that comes out, we're going to be doing like a retweet, repost, whatever contest to get yourself 5 copies of Midsummer. The following episode for Loki will be probably a short one because we're gonna. I don't. You don't have to worry about it. Literally, I'm driving out like 4 in the morning that morning to go to BlizzCon, so I have to
Oh,
record after Loki. Then I gotta go sleep for a couple hours and then drive out. So we're gonna be up against the clock on that one, but I
God,
can't
no
wait. It's gonna
Thursday
be
night
fun.
football for me next week, Dad. We're gonna like right at 6:30. You're like, you ready? I'm
Yeah,
like, the episode's 45 minutes long, dude. We still got 15 minutes to go. Like,
it's
get
hard
your
because I
ass on
also
the
record Outlast podcast
mic.
tonight too. So I'm always double recording on
Damn,
Thursday nights. Yeah, I really missed
busy
the Tuesday
boy.
Ahsokas.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah, Marvel needs to go back to that too. But we are getting all of Echo in one dump. But
We'll see
anyways,
how we cover
that's in the
that.
future. That
Yeah.
is in another timeline that we're not there yet. As for now, check us out. Check out Midsommar because
Yeah.
whew, that was a tough one for me. I'm not gonna
That
lie,
was
that was
so hard to
tough.
watch. We'll get into it, but yeah, that was pretty. Also, we talk about the MCU book a lot. I do suggest it quite a bit. There's a brand new Marvel book as well. That's a timeline book that clarifies the MCU timeline, and it uses the TVA and Miss Minutes as a narrative tool in it. So it's, if you like the TVA and stuff like that, the new Marvel book is basically all about it. So it's really cool. All right, guys, that is it for us today, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Aloha.